Hello and welcome. My name is Gino Barbaro, one of the co-founders of Jake and Gino, and in this important how-to, to me, I personally think this is one of the most important skills that you can create and develop as a real estate investor, as a father, as a leader, just as a human being. It's negotiation, how to negotiate a real estate deal using our S.P.Y, our SPY technique. That's what we're going to be discussing on today's how to. But before I dive in, I'm super excited. I just launched our new book. It's called Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy. And this week, if you go on Amazon, you can get a free download. You can download it for free. We're trying to hit bestseller status. But more importantly, as you're listening to this, if you want to get a free hard copy, all you need to do is to get the book, leave a review, send me a screen grab of that review to my email, gino@jakeandgino.com, with your email address and your physical address. And what I'll do is I will send you a book in the mail. Now, it's pretty ironic that I selected this topic to discuss Happy Money that I'm launching this week with negotiations. You may be saying to yourself, well, what does Happy Money and negotiation have to do? How are they even, connected? And one word, when you're living a life of happy money and you're earning happy money, it's all about abundance. We're taught, or a lot of us have this imagination in our minds, that negotiation is all about, I'm going to win, I'm going to crush the other side. That is the farthest thing from the truth. Now, understanding in my book that I write about the happy money, what your relationship is with money, for me early on, it was scarcity. It was I needed to win. I needed to be a saver. I looked at business from a scarcity perspective. What does that mean? What it means to me, I bring that into every other part of my life, and negotiation is one of those aspects. Now, I'm going to give a big shout out to Chris Voss. To me personally, one of the top 10 books that I've read on business in the last 15 years for myself personally, only because it's a book when you pick up and you read, you don't really just feel good about reading it. You actually take notes, copious amount of notes. You go back. And from there, if you really are diligent, you can start pulling things out and practicing. There's so much stuff in there, whether it's mirroring, whether it's an accusation audit, whether it's the questions that that Chris tells you. The stories are great, but it's the next steps that he tells you. He's basically teaching you in that book. What does it cost you? $20? To become a much better negotiator, getting people to say no, getting them to be more comfortable with you, the DJ voice, all the different strategies and techniques that he's used over the course of his career. I would say after you listen to this, go out and buy it. Listen, Chris is not paying me $1 to do that, but I want you guys, as you're listening to this, to become much better negotiators, because negotiation is not just about you winning. It's about you providing solutions, not only for yourself, but the other side. And that it was such an impactful book. I would go out there and I would buy Chris's book and I'd read it to cover, and I read it a couple times. If you want book notes, I've created book notes on Chris Voss's book. Just email me, gino@jakeandgino.com, and I'll send them over to you. I've got a quote here, and I'll read this to you, and I want you to really sit with this for a little bit, because I think, as I said, our idea, the paradigm that most of us were taught to think about negotiation is that stodgy old person, man, cigar, I'm going to win at all costs. The goal is to identify what your counterparts actually need and get them feeling safe enough to talk and talk and talk some more about what they want. That is the total opposite of what most people think negotiation is all about. What you need to do to become a better negotiator, there's two things that you need to do. Number one, as in everything else in life, is you need to be prepared going into negotiation. If you're going into a real estate deal, you need to know everything about the market. You need to know everything about the counterpart. You need to know everything about the parties involved, the property managers, the brokers, the attorneys. Go deeper, syndication, go deeper, cost segregation, go deeper, learning about all about the deal itself, learning about the problems of the deal, learning about the seller himself or herself. Why is he or she selling the deal? What are they going to be doing with the proceeds? You need to be really prepared going into that conversation and into that negotiation. And the second part is all about listening. As I always like to say, I say this often to my kids, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's use those accordingly. We should listen a lot less than we talk. And as you become older and as you become more of a leader in your industry, as a leader in your family, what you should be really reverting back to is let everyone else speak, listen to them, gather the information, and then you should speak. And that is great news, great information, great tip, great idea, whatever you'd like to say about negotiation. You go in there and you just heard the quote that I read. Let them talk and let them talk and let them talk and let them tell you what their motivation is. Now, I've got a great story that illustrates exactly how you can get your next deal using very simple techniques, what I've just laid out. We had a deal that didn't hit the market, but I knew someone in our community had been looking at this deal. And for some reason, this gentleman reached out to Jake and myself. The property, he had built it himself. He was one of those older school gentlemen that was entrenched in the community, was a contractor, and was looking to sell. So what did Jake do? He gets in his pickup truck because he knows he's a contractor, wants to build rapport right away, gets to the property, and Jake wants to understand, why is this person selling? What's his stuck point? What's his challenge? It's a 2004 build. Nice build. He built it himself, 40 units. He had concrete in between the levels. It was built really well. But why was he selling? He was just done with that property. He wanted to retire. But he didn't want to sell it to a Yankee. He wanted to sell it to somebody in the community. He wanted to sell it to somebody who would continue on his legacy. He would want it to sell to somebody who would take care of his property. And we found out that he was pissed off at the bank because if he sold it, he'd have to pay, get this, a $15,000 prepayment penalty on a $3 million deal. Now, you may be saying to yourself, what does all this have to do with anything? Well, remember, is what do they actually want? This seller wasn't looking for the highest price. He wanted to sell to somebody in the community that would continue on his legacy and take care of his baby. Because remember, he built this thing. He wanted us to take care of it and to treat it really well. Once again, you may be saying to yourself, what the hell does that have to do with anything about selling property? Throw away the logic. We are emotional creatures at the end of the day. He wanted somebody to buy the property, show that all the love that he put into it, and continue that love. And oh, by the way, that big bad bank, $15,000, I don't want to pay them. They don't deserve that money. So we made the offer contingent on $3 million. It was $81,000 per unit. He liked us. We checked all those boxes. And oh, by the way, Mr. Seller, we'll pay your $15,000 prepayment penalty. That's like icing on the cake. When he heard that, he was like a little school kid. I mean, it was just the funniest thing in the world. 15 grand on a $3 million deal. Once again, that's what he wanted. He felt the pain, and we wanted to share in that pain with him. We were solving the problem. We were going to take care of the property. We were going to run it like he did. We were going to add value to the property. And we were in the community. Understanding that is what made this deal work. He passed on several other buyers because A, they weren't in the market, B, they were larger groups, and they were just looking to take this property, fix it up, and then flip it. We still own this property 3 years later. The property's doubled in value. We love the residents there. We love the area. And it was a win-win. That's what you're trying to do when you're negotiating deals. Now, I'm going to mention what the S.P.Y technique is. This is something that we've trademarked at Jake and Gino, and it goes along the same vein as what I've been discussing over the last several minutes. It's S is for seller, P is for property, and Y is for you. Once again, what most people do in negotiation when they make mistakes is they think what they need. And this is really important. If you're looking at a deal, let's say you're looking at a creatively financed deal, you're trying to solve your problem. You're not trying to solve the seller's problem. And that's what S.P.Y does. It's looking at it from the seller's perspective. Remember, what does the counterpart need? What is this problem that you're trying to solve? And we've done over, I think, $25 million worth of creatively financed deals, seller finance deals. And we've used this time and time again. We've seen that our students who are successful don't look at a deal just through the seller finance lens. Don't look at the deal just from what they're going to get, but what problem are you trying to solve for the seller? A lot of times these sellers, they're burned out. They just want to move on. They don't have enough money to fix the property because it needs a lot of deferred maintenance. They're looking for mailbox money. They've got a better solution. They want to do a 1031, whatever it is. That's the goal of an amazing negotiator, to understand the pain points, to understand the problems to solve. That's the S part. The P part is the property. Now, does that property you're looking at fit what we call your buy right criteria? If it does, great. You've got a problem you can solve. The property is up your alley. Let's continue to the why. And if it isn't, if it's a property that you don't want, not in your buy right criteria, doesn't matter how many problems you're going to solve. You should pass from that property. But if it does fit your criteria, you like the property, you can handle it, it's in your buy right, let's move over to the why, which is you. You are always last in this equation. Because if you don't have a motivated seller and you can't solve a problem, you're never going to get a deal in real estate. That is the reality. And that's why in 2021, 2022, and in early 23, there weren't a lot of deals, actual value in real estate, because no one really had a problem. If they could sell the property, they'd put it on the market and they'd sell it at a high price. Things have shifted. That's why it's important to learn these negotiation skills. In 21 and 22, you didn't have the ability to negotiate because you weren't solving problems. They weren't real problems. If they didn't want to sell, they didn't sell. They held on. And there were 15 people that wanted to overpay. But things have changed. This technique is so important when you're looking at seller financing. And by the way, I've said this before, seller financing is back on the menu, boys. It's back on in a big way. So understand how to use this technique, S.P.Y. And I want to talk about the two different ways to negotiate. It's called positional bargaining and principal negotiation. Let me read the definition of positional bargaining. It occurs when people negotiate according to their positions or statements of what they want to get out of the situation. It's exactly what I've been talking about. That's exactly the if you're looking at the stereotype, what do I want? What am I going to get out of for myself? And it's really a one-timer. You're in real estate, if you're positionally bargaining constantly, you're going to burn bridges. People aren't going to want to work with you, and it's going to be short-lived. You can get away with it for a little bit of time, but after a while, brokers are going to see how you are. I want this, and I'm not budging. They don't want to work with you after a while. Positional bargaining, once again, what's that word that I mentioned a little while ago? It's the scarcity mindset. You're not looking at it from an abundance mindset. You may have to give a little on the price, but you can ask for something else. Maybe a longer due diligence period. Maybe some more money for repairs. There's so many different things that you can look at it. Don't look at it just from the positional way. Sometimes it's a one-off where you're working with somebody and you want to do something and you want to get the best price and you're never going to do business ever again. Great. But in real estate, if you're looking long-term, positional bargaining can harm you. Now, the other one, it's called principal negotiation. Let me read this one to you. It's interest-based. Each party is concerned about the others based on a vested interest in maintaining a relationship once the deal is completed. That sounds like the abundance mindset. What do you need in this deal to make it work? What do I need in this deal to make it work? Well, in that deal that I had talked about, the 40-unit deal, what did the seller need? The seller didn't need us to pay his prepayment penalty, but we felt that if we had offered that to him, he would have seen that the rapport that we're building is he understands that we understand his pain and we want to solve that pain. We understood also that we're going to take the property over and continue to run it and not just flip it. What did we need? We needed a fair price. I mean, $81,000 a door for this property was under market at the time, But based on where the numbers were on an actual numbers, we actually paid a fair price. He could have gotten more on the open market because that's where property values were at the time. It was probably worth a little over $100,000 a door. It came in at a $4 million appraisal when we went to go closing the deal. But he, once again, was willing to take less because he didn't want to deal with brokers. That was another thing that I probably should have mentioned. He didn't want to deal with those brokers taking commissions and getting paid. Okay, we understood that pain. We don't have a broker. We're going direct to you. You're going to save on that fee as well. So understanding all those negotiations. So what I want you to take from this lesson more than anything is try to really adopt and adhere to that principled negotiation style. Try to be more of what Stephen Covey says. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. That is so powerful. If you first understand the situation and then you can have yourself be understood, that's important because people are always asking about what's in it for me? What's in it for me? And you should go into negotiation thinking that way also. What's in it for them, not for me, ultimately. And what I want you to do is write that S.P.Y. right on your notepad. As you're going and you're negotiating deals, I want you to think of the seller first, think of the property second, and think of yourself as the last element in that equation. I'm going to end off by reading that quote once again because it's such a powerful quote. I want you to adopt this type of mindset. The goal is to identify what your counterparts actually need and get them feeling safe enough to talk and talk and talk some more about what they want. Let them talk, you do all the listening, and then formulate your value proposition. I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me on this how-to, and I will see you on next week's how-to. Take care, everyone.